Hi, I'm Jarlaxles, and today I'm going to tell you about my Corrupting Cry build that I made here on Standard. Corrupting Cry is a support gem that modifies war cries and allows anything in the radius of the war cry to be inflicted with 4 corrupted blood debuffs per war cry. This debuff deals physical damage over time and can stack up to 10 times on each enemy, and it lasts a couple of seconds. I get this support gem on a Forbidden Shaco, which can allow it to roll up to level 35. This gem scales flat damage, so gem level is very important. Getting over level 30 is a huge damage increase for this build. Efficacy is the other support gem on this helm, which is also good for this setup, as it increases or gives you more damage over time, which is our main way of dealing damage here. You don't need the second support on this helm for the build to work. You just really need the high level Corrupting Cry, but efficacy gives it more damage, so it is desirable. So to trigger the Corrupting Cry, we're using General's Cry. We're supporting with Swift Affliction, Brutality, and Call to Arms. This is the new support gem that allows war cries to be cast automatically whenever their cooldown is over. It means you don't have to hit any buttons, which is nice. It has some drawbacks we'll get to, but it's overall been very nice on this build. So we're using General's Cry, and we get the cooldown on this down as low as we can go. Now to do that, I'm using these crucible swords. Now these swords have a mod at the bottom there, 100% more Frozen Legion and General's Cry cooldown recovery rate. Now I have that on both swords for 200% more cooldown recovery rate. I also have a lot of Warcry cooldown recovery rate tattoos everywhere I can get them. I think I have about 43 or something. I don't know. I have a few that I ended up not using when I had to modify the build, but I have over 40 of them on the tree. Plus, going for the Warcry nodes, you get a lot of cooldown recovery. Now, another mod on this sword is 50% reduced damage, but 60% increased damage for each time you've Warcried recently. And again, I have that on both swords. So that's 120% increased damage for every time I Warcry in the past 4 seconds. And actually it will be 135 when you add in this notable for 15% damage for each Warcry. So 135 damage increased every time I Warcry in 4 seconds. And my Warcry has a cooldown of 0.15 seconds, which means anywhere from 6 to 7 times per second. So we're looking at over 25 Warcries in the past 4 seconds when it's running. So 25 times 135 gets you about 3,375% increased damage. So it's a very substantial damage increase, and a very strange way of getting it, but it works great in this build. Now, we're also getting a lot of other things when we Warcry. We're going to start with, I make sure that Warcry Mastery gives them minimum of 10 power. Now this is for 2 reasons. One, mob mentality gives me a 5% chance to grant an endurance, frenzy, or power charge per power. So with at least 10 power, I'm getting a 50% chance to get a charge every time I Warcry. So I will have pretty much a full uptime on all 3 charges, just with that node. I also have that which was Taken Jewel. Now this gives me 5 rage per 5 power if I have less than 25 rage. So it will give me 10 rage as long as I have less than 25 every time I Warcry. at least. It will be more if I have mobs around me, but at least 10 rage every time I Warcry, as long as I'm below that threshold. This enables me to run Berserk, and I have that set up to the new automation skill, or support. Berserk will give me 19% less damage taken and 30% more movement speed. I don't benefit from the damage aspects or the attack speed, but just the less damage taken and movement speed alone are amazingly comfortable on this build. Now, with me gaining rage every time I Warcry, and Berserk slowly draining your rage, this allows for a very long uptime on this buff. Usually about a minute and a half if I'm just sitting here in my hideout. It can go anywhere from over 2 minutes in a map, depending on how many mobs stay around me. And then when it falls off, it has a cooldown of about 4 seconds, and then automation just pops it right back on. So it's up almost all the time, giving me that permanent 30% more move speed and 19% less damage taken. Now the less damage taken is nice because I also run Warcry's debilitate enemies for 1 second. That means they will have 20% less movement speed and deal 10% less damage. So that's 29% less damage I'm taking from anything that's been debilitated. And cursed, not cursed. I also run the curse enfeeble, which gives, where is it? Enfeeble gives another 20% less damage. So I'm taking about 50% less damage from any mob that I've hit with a curse or Warcry that's got them debilitated. That makes damage incoming very manageable. And this build manages it extra well because the way I am paying for my Warcries, which is Corrupting Cry, makes all the mana costs become life costs. So the Warcry, General's Cry, costing me 500 life each time. Now, when you're casting it 6 to 7 times a second, that's a substantial life cost. And it was actually more, but we take this wheel as well as this wheel to reduce that cost a little bit. Got me from about 800 life cost down to 500, which helped. But it's still a lot of life cost to maintain our Warcries. So we stack life regen. We get 300 from each ring. I got a life regen mod on my boots, life regen on the gloves. I have a Watcher's Eye with double life regen nodes that are both legacy. And altogether that gives me 3,300 life regen, which is enough to pay the cost of the Warcries and a little extra to help make my character a little more tanky. Got 76,000 armor, it's decent. Resists are decent. Got max chaos. I am ailment immune due to my boots, giving me shock avoidance, and running not Forbidden Flash, Storm Shroud. I am running the Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Aspect of Carnage, which is a 40% more damage dealt and 10% increased damage taken. Pretty much just for the damage. Then we've got another node on that which was taken, which explodes corpses nearby whenever I Warcry, which is just more damage and clears out all the corpses so that nothing will do corpse explode near you. It's just nice to have. Other than that, I think that's the main interactions. In order to fit all my auras, I had to use some aura clusters for reservation. Had to go up here to hit sovereignty just to make that mana cost in this wheel. But altogether, that allows me to do this. So here's the automation, which will trigger Molten Shell and Berserk, although I don't have Rage yet. But here, when I turn Call to Arms on, you will see the Warcry spam. You will see my Rage going up, and then Berserk is draining it, but I continue to Warcry, and every time I get below 25 Rage, it goes back up. And this will keep doing that until eventually it does overcome it and run out, and then it will just turn right back on a few seconds later. You'll see my charges here. They do fall off sometimes. That's because I have a node on this crucible tree on this sword for 75% reduced charge duration, which is not ideal, but not really a big deal because they, get back up real quick. And yeah, so then now I am doing damage in this whole area for about 12 million dot DPS. It hits everything. It can't be blocked. It can't be suppressed. It's a very consistent source of damage, because I don't have to aim it. I don't have to target anything. I don't have to click anything. I just have to stand there. So I'll show you this build in action. We'll start with just a regular T16 map. Just Alk and go, and I'll show you how it just blasts through this. So as you can see, it's instantly applying the corrupted blood to everything that I come near, and the damage is enough to basically just annihilate everything on these maps. Here I'll show you it's very good at these ultimatums. I mean, there's nothing in here that's really gonna hurt me. Only a couple mods matter for these, which this is one of them. You do not want reduced life recovery rate, because that is where my survivability comes in order to pay the cost. I need my life regen. So there's that mod, and then there's the cooldown, 5 times worse cooldown, or whatever that mod is, which really is just a damage decrease. It's not a huge concern, but I avoid that if I can. Resistances don't matter. I don't do any resist or elemental damage. As you can see, it's not the craziest DPS, but it's enough, and it's nice and tanky and low maintenance. I just sit here and kind of let it do its thing. Like I said, the damage over time stuff, like this Chaos Cloud, it doesn't even really scratch against the regen that I have, so it's not a concern. And I do have the sound effects off on this. which is kind of mandatory for this build unless you really want to hear the Warcry effects. I'll show you how they sound. And this is how the build sounds for people who have the sound on. It is kind of nice to hear the pops from the corpse exploding. But generally I play this with the sound off for obvious reasons. And there we go. Moving on. There's that popping sound from all the corpses exploding. Harbingers, you can pretty much just stand on them. Most things this build can just ignore and just AFK, and when you come back things will be dead. There's not a whole lot that it has to worry about outside of harder content like Ubers or T17s or deep delving and stuff. But for the most part it's very tanky, very easy to play. You can get hit by most things and recover quite easily. Here we'll do a breachstone. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the sound effects back off because that gets old. You can see it has really nice clear. Corpse explode helps a lot with that, but just the huge AoE on this Warcry being the main source of damage makes it very comfy to just walk into a room and just know that pretty much anything in sight is taking damage instantly. Here you'll see, take that, against Cheula, that the damage is not insane or anything. It's a solid, 11 or 12 million, which is hard to mitigate because it can't be blocked or suppressed, or it's fizz damage, so it can't have resists. So it's a very consistent amount of damage, but it's not anything crazy. But it's enough, especially when you're tanky enough to just sit there and wait until it gets the job done. Grab that. Alright, now I'll show you a T17 map. I'm going to do Abomination. It's got some endurance, power charges, barrels, runes. Yeah, nothing too bad on this one. do not like the runes, the Syrian Exarch runes on the ground. That I don't like stuff on the ground in general. Alright, we made it to the boss. This boss is the troop. And see, though, that's from the Exarch runes. Alright, this boss is the trio. Malagaro, Dodre, and Chavron. Now when they die, they become ghosts that continue to attack you until you've killed all three of them. Just lots of fun. And I'm dead. Luckily, we made a portal. That's Chevron causing problems. Should spawn this guy. He's much easier than the three of them. And again, you see the damage is not the greatest, takes a little while, but it gets it done eventually. There we go. One death, not too bad. There we go. Alright, last one I will show you is an Uber boss. We'll do Cortex. He's one of the more manageable ones. Again, you can just fly through the map. Most of this stuff isn't a threat. Yeah, we had something. What was that? No. Alright, let's do this guy. Uber Cortex boss will be the two bosses. And because you apply 4 corrupted blood debuffs with each Warcry, you really just have to run in and touch the boss and then run out, and then you've got your damage for the next 3 seconds or so before you have to get back in. So just run in, apply your debuff, run out, avoid damage, and they die pretty quick. Alright, now I get the two bosses again. These two pairs. That one, the Fractal Titan, is the main threat. And don't want to get hit by that again. And we get hit by it anyway. Oh, and here's his big explosion. Never seem to be far enough away from this thing. Let's see if I'm... Alright. Alright, and the last two. See these world-class dodging skills as I run into pretty much everything. Which is part of why I love this build, because I can make a lot of mistakes. It's not immortal, you saw I died a few times, but it is a very forgiving build. And that's it for the Uber Cortex boss. See what we got, and it is junk as usual. So that is my build. It is really only doable here on standard due to the legacy crucible swords being such a big factor in my version. There's other corrupting cry builds for League players that are built differently. I'm not familiar with them, so this is really the only one that I've worked on. But it's one of the fun things you can do on standard, playing with some of the broken legacy items and mechanics that still exist here, which I find to be a lot of fun. And yeah, this is one of my favorite builds in quite some time. So real quick, just to go over the gear again, you got the two red blade swords, the Shako, and presents from Uber Elder for the two curses, two Kikazus, or Kikazaru, whatever, brass dome, got some crafted boots and gloves, and then mage blood with quicksilver, quartz, amethyst, and bismuth flasks. Progenesis, and I think I went over all the jewels. Just double check that which was taken. Thread of Hope, Forbidden Jewels, Warcry cluster. Oh, there's just a generic Fizz cluster. The Watcher's Eye, another Thread of Hope, Storm Shroud, and my mana reservation clusters. So that's the build. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration, and hope it inspires more people to play standard, where there's some really fun things you can do. And I will be posting more videos of other builds I have in the near future. Take care.